Hey, everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh. Thank you for spending some time with me today listening to the pod. As you know from the title, we're going to talk about 5 roadblocks sabotaging your sobriety. And if you've been trying to stay sober and keep finding yourself back at square one, it's not because of your willpower, right? It's often these unseen roadblocks that derail your progress. And if you do continually find yourself back at day one, you have to start troubleshooting what's really going on and understand that typically it's going to be mental, right? These are mindsets. Actions are problems also, right? Like we have bad habits, we make bad choices, but every action you take starts as a thought. So when you have a struggle, it's going to start in your thoughts. So that's where we have to start troubleshooting what's actually going on for you so that you can get some solutions, okay? We're going to talk about 5 of the most common challenges that I see and how you can start seeing them in yourself and seeing if they're affecting you. And to accompany this episode, I made you a free guide that has all 5 of these roadblocks in it, what it looks like, why it's a roadblock, like how it shows up in your life and how it's holding you back, and how to spot it. The how to spot it part really is to be utilized as an exercise. You can take these questions in how to spot it and grab your journal. And this is your opportunity to really dig a little bit deeper and see what's going on for you. Figure out what's really holding you back. We have the Dry January boot camp starting in a couple of weeks, and it's all about roadblocks. We're going to be digging more into all of these things. And when you get the resource guide for this episode, 5 roadblocks sabotaging your sobriety and how to spot them. When you get the resource, the bootcamp information is in there as well. And of course, I'll link it in the show notes, but it doesn't start for a couple of weeks, but you can definitely get signed up so you'll start getting the emails to know what's going on and when to get in the private community and all that good stuff. Let's get into number 1. Believing the myths about alcoholism. This is a huge roadblock, right? Again, mental. And here's what it looks like. It is thinking you have to hit rock bottom to quit. Or let me come at this from a different angle, because if you've been with me for any length of time, you know I look at rock bottom a little bit differently. Rock bottom is not an event, right? This is its own myth, is that rock bottom is an event. It's not. It's a mental place that you hit. Rock bottom is the very moment you go, holy shit, I cannot live like this anymore. Period. That's it. That's rock bottom. It does not have to be accompanied by an extravaganza, right? It doesn't need to be accompanied by a DUI or a car accident or losing a job or getting kicked out of your house. Rock bottom's not an event. It's a mental place that you hit, and it can be anything. 98% of my clients don't have a major extravaganza rock bottom moment like I had. The majority of my clients don't have that. They have something that clicks in a split second where they go, oh my gosh, I have to stop this right the F now. I've got to figure this out and I've got to get help. And they reach out and schedule a free call with me and we get started. But thinking that you have to hit a rock bottom or that rock bottom looks a certain way is definitely one of the myths that will hold you back. Your rock bottom can be whatever it is. My rock bottom truly, when I look big picture, my rock bottom was happening over the course of a few years before I finally had my extravaganza, right? So don't think that you have to hit rock bottom or it has to look a certain way for it to be rock bottom. The next one is believing sobriety will ruin your social life. This is huge. I've done a couple of videos recently on my Instagram about this too. If you have this outlook on sobriety and recovery, like it's a drag, like it's this horrible thing that's going to happen to you and it's so terrible and your life's going to be over and you're never going to have fun again. Listen, you're not going to stay sober if that's all your shitty thought process. You can't look at something as a punishment and expect to be successful at it, right? We don't function that way as human beings. We are created to move away from pain. That's why the rock bottom thing exists. That's why, because something has to happen that's painful enough to get you to pay attention. We are motivated to move away from pain. So if you're looking at sobriety and recovery as pain or a punishment, you are naturally going to move away from it. This is huge, you guys. This is huge. And it's such a myth. Sobriety is not going to ruin your social life. It's a transition. It's no different than any of the other millions of transitions we go through in our lives, right? As we grow up, we go through a million transitions mentally, emotionally, physically. When you go to college and graduate college, that's a transition. When you get a new job or lose a job, that's a transition. Relationships, having babies, these are all transitions. Recovery is no different. It's just a transition. It's a little weird at first because it's new and different. You've got to figure it out and figure out how it works for you and how it's comfortable. But there's nothing bad about it. It's not ruining your social life. Your social life is just going to transition to look a little bit different than you know it to look in your past. Because now you're creating a life to fit a future instead of creating a life that fits your past. The other one is thinking that you don't look like an alcoholic, so your problem isn't as bad as other people. Here's the crux of this whole thing. When you are trying to control something, you've already lost control. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how beautiful your life is. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how cool your friends think you are. When you're listening to addiction and recovery podcasts and reading Quit Lit and toying with the idea of going to meetings, you've already lost control. I don't care if you want to call yourself an alcoholic or not. I personally wear that term as a badge of honor. It is really probably the best thing about me. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's made me the best version of myself that I wouldn't be today if it wasn't for being an alcoholic. So I think it's fucking fantastic. But if you're all hung up on that word and don't want to use it, don't use it. But understand that regardless of what label you put on it does not change the nature of the problem. The problem is the same, whether you want to call yourself an alcoholic, alcohol-free, or what the fuck ever we're calling ourselves these days. It just is what it is. So if you can't drink, if you have a problem with drinking, if you lose control when you drink, and there are a bunch of myths about what losing control is too, but if you struggle with any of those things, you have a problem. And if you have a problem, you're trying to control something that you've already lost control of. But it has nothing to do with how you look. It has nothing to do with how high functioning you are or how well you've managed your life or what that picture looks like to the outside world. Those things have nothing to do with what it means to have a problem with alcohol. And again, it doesn't matter what label you put on it. It is what it is. Now, why are these things roadblocks? They're roadblocks because they keep you stuck. They keep you stuck in denial or fear, and it prevents you from taking your sobriety seriously. It prevents you from taking the action you really need to take to get the results you really want to get. And denial is a defense mechanism. It's self-preservation. When something feels too big to deal with for your brain, if your brain is like, ugh, I don't know if I can cope with that quite yet, that's when you go into denial. And that's when you go into the things, well, I haven't had a rock bottom moment. None of that stuff has ever happened to me. And I don't look like those people, or my life isn't like those people. That's denial. That's all it is. It's denial. And fear is the other part of it, right? You get fearful of the future. It all becomes unknown. You get fearful of feeling feelings. You get fearful of being left out of things. You get fearful of not having friends anymore, not feeling camaraderie and fellowship and love and acceptance. You can get all of those things in sobriety, right? If sobriety was terrible, there wouldn't be hundreds of millions of people doing it all the time. That number was probably an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of freaking sober people, and a lot of us are living really beautiful lives. It's just about how much energy and effort you want to put into it. So, how to spot it. This is going to be in the free resource I created for you. And this is how to spot it, is what I want you to really take a pen and paper and write out and dig deep and do some real thinking on these how to spot it questions, right? So, how to spot number one, believing the myths about alcoholism. Ask yourself, what stories have I told myself about alcoholism or sobriety? What are the stories that you're saying to yourself in your mind? How are you falling into these things we've talked about? And how has that kept you from moving forward? That's the how to spot it question on that one. Let's move on to number two. Number two is lack of boundaries. Here's what it looks like. Saying yes to social events you know will be triggering, letting others pressure you into drinking, or internalizing it as pressure. Listen, I see people fold to this pressure, and I'm using air quotes with that word. I see people fold on the tiniest thing that they feel pressure, but you're feeling internal pressure. It's not coming from external people. Sometimes it is. But listen, if somebody comes up to you and says, "Can I get you a drink?" And you go, "No, I'm not drinking." And they go, "Oh, you're not drinking? Why is that?" That's not pressure. That's curiosity, right? So don't think that that is pressure. Go, "Oh my God, I'm just going to drink so nobody asks me that." That's not pressure. So don't fall prey to that thinking, right? Again, those are stories that you're telling yourself. And the other one is overcommitting to people or activities and neglecting your own needs. These are all lack of boundaries. And if you can't start setting some boundaries, this takes practice. Boundaries take practice. You're not going to hit it out of the park day one. You're not going to be perfect at it. It takes practice. I'm not perfect at it, and I'm about to be 19 years sober. I've been practicing a long time, and I'm not perfect at it. I still catch myself from time to time overextending myself. But if you're saying yes to things that you know will be triggering or people that you know are triggering, that's crappy boundaries. If you're overcommitting yourself so that you can't follow through on your routines that keep you healthy, then you're neglecting yourself, and that's shitty boundaries. So why are boundaries a roadblock? Because without boundaries, it's easy to fall into old patterns and put yourself in situations that are going to threaten your sobriety. You have to have healthy boundaries for yourself. Listen, even to this day, if I can't make it to something, if I'm not feeling quite right, if I'm sad, I mean, who knows? I could be anything from one minute to the next. But if I don't feel like going to something, I'm not going. If it's something incredibly important, then I will go and I'll just put a time frame on it, right? I'm not going to stay very long. I'm going to do a whole bunch of things to nourish my little soul before I go. And I'm going to do a whole bunch of things afterward to nourish my soul, to make sure I stay in a good, healthy, strong place mentally and emotionally. If you are not utilizing the most simple boundaries to protect yourself, you're going to fall into old patterns, right? And you're going to make choices that are going to threaten your sobriety, and you are going to lose the battle. Here's the how to spot it question on this one. I want you to reflect. When was the last time you said no to protect your sobriety? And what's one boundary that you can start setting right now? And there are all kinds of boundaries, right? I've done a lot of episodes about this, how to set boundaries, the different kinds of boundaries, what to say. But those are your how to spot it questions. When was the last time you said no to protect your sobriety? And what's one boundary that you can start practicing setting right now? Number 3, emotional triggers. Here's what it looks like. Turning to alcohol to cope with anxiety, guilt, anger, or really any feeling. You know, we don't deal with feelings well. We don't crave drinks because we want drinks. We crave drinks because we want to change the way we feel. So you're turning to alcohol to cope with any of your feelings. Anxiety, guilt, and anger are 3 of the biggest. Next one, feeling overwhelmed by emotions and not knowing how to manage them. And 3 is numbing out instead of addressing the root cause. These are all emotional triggers. If you are overwhelmed by your emotions and you don't know how to deal with them, you are automatically going to resort back to alcohol because it's the one coping skill you have and you know it works. Therefore, you have to start developing other coping skills. You have to start figuring out how to deal with your emotions and also keeping your emotions in check as much as possible, not being so reactive. These are all things that you can be learning about yourself in your recovery journey. But if you don't let your emotions get overwhelming, you're going to be far less apt to want to turn to alcohol to numb them. Right? And then you numb, this was the last one, numbing out instead of addressing the root cause. When you numb, you are not solving the problem. You are just putting a Band-Aid on it. So you have to address the root cause. You have to get in your head and go, okay, what am I really feeling right now? Why am I wanting a drink right now? What's really going on? Am I lonely? Am I bored? Am I overwhelmed? Am I irritated? What is the thing? You have to figure out what the root cause is, because then you can find a solution to that feeling, and then it doesn't have to be an emotional trigger. So why is this a roadblock? Because unmanaged emotions are major triggers for relapse. Sobriety requires learning new ways to cope with feelings and life and all of life's challenges. Here's your how to spot it question. Ask yourself, what's the emotion I feel most often when I want to drink? And what's one healthy way I could handle that feeling instead? And listen, if you can't come up with answers to these yourself, Google it, okay? You know, I say this all the time, Google it. Like, if I can identify that what I'm struggling with is loneliness, and this is actually a big one for me because I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm alone a lot. My work is really alone a lot. So I can fall into these times of really feeling lonely and being like, damn, my friends haven't called me. And then I realize I haven't called them either because I'm like a little mad scientist in entrepreneur world. So loneliness is a big one for me. If I don't know in the moment how to deal with loneliness, but I can recognize like, wow, I'm missing people. I'm missing being around people. I'm missing being out. I'm missing having conversation. I'm missing someone asking me how I'm doing, right? That's loneliness. And if I don't know how to cope with it, I can Google it. How do I deal with loneliness? 10 ways I can cope with loneliness. How do I not feel lonely anymore? Right? Google it. Google knows everything. It'll give you all the answers, everything you need. Okay? Those are your how to spot it questions. Again, all of this is in the free resource I made for you that you can get to accompany this episode. So don't worry if you can't remember all this. You're not expected to remember all this. You don't need to be feverishly taking notes. You can just download the free resource and you have everything at your fingertips. Holiday season is upon us, my friends, and it isn't too late to gift Cozy Earth this Christmas. One of my favorite holiday traditions is every year my mom and I have a shopping day together. We shop, we lunch, we get an afternoon latte, and it's a beautiful day of connection where we finish off our gift lists. One of my favorite gifts to give is anything that can help create a sleep sanctuary. Because at the end of a super busy shopping day or spending time with kids or grandkids, it's important to have a refuge in your home to escape the demands of the outside world. And the ultimate gift this holiday season is Cozy Earth's bamboo sheet set. I hope my mom isn't listening right now because she is definitely getting a set of these. This is something everyone will use and absolutely adore. And let me tell you what I love about mine. I got a king size set in white and they are so breathable. They keep me way cooler at night, which has always been a struggle for me. And I really appreciate that they believe in their own products so much. They have a 10-year warranty. They use durable fabrics that don't pill, and they only use the best fabrics for the ultimate softness. Because what is a luxury sleep sanctuary without the softest sheets? Cozy Earth also prides themselves on the responsible production of all their products. And as if all of that wasn't amazing enough, when you place your order, you can use my exclusive 40% off code. Yes, you heard me right. 40% off with code Angela. I am so grateful for this discount. And if you order by December 20th, you can still get expedited shipping to ensure you get it by Christmas. Don't wait though. Head over to cozyearth.com, use my exclusive discount code Angela for 40% off, and you can finish off your gift list in one stop. You will not believe the incredible products you're going to find on this site, cozyearth.com. And if you get a post-purchase survey, make sure you let them know you heard about Cozy Earth from this podcast. Super important. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. CozyEarth.com, exclusive code Angela for 40% off. All right, number 4, poor planning for social situations. Here's what it looks like. Going to a party without a plan for staying sober. Huge no-no. I think this is probably one of the topics that I've done the most episodes about is how to do social events and things and stay sober, the importance of planning ahead, how to plan ahead, what steps to take, all those things. You have to have a plan. Do not go haphazardly without even thinking about it and thinking things through, have no plan, and then be surprised when you relapse. That's ridiculous. You have to have a plan. If you don't plan, then you're not going to perform well. Poor planning equals poor performance. So that's your choice to make. If you want to fail, then don't plan. If you want to succeed, then plan. Pretty simple. Next one is feeling pressured to explain why you're not drinking. Now, I understand feeling pressured, right? Or feeling weird. It really isn't pressured. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because we feel different. We feel like people look at us differently and we don't know what to say. Again, why it's so important to plan in advance. You can think through, what am I going to say? What are a few different things I can say? How are a few different ways I can say it so that it's comfortable and I don't sound like an awkward weirdo? I learned very early in my sobriety, the cooler I was about my sobriety, the cooler other people were about it. So if somebody said to me, oh, do you want to drink? And I go, oh, no, I don't drink. If they say, why is that? Which I don't know that I've ever even had this happen hardly, like probably a few times, but this is not common. I don't think too many people dig into it unless you're like really casual about it, right? Which just makes them curious if there's something serious or not serious. But if somebody asks me why I don't drink, I just go, because I'm a fucking lunatic. It's really very simple. Another one I saw recently, I used this on my social media and it has been making the rounds, super popular, says, I went pro and retired early, right? I went all in early and I retired early. There are so many different ways that you can handle this that aren't awkward and weird so that you and the people around you don't have to be awkward and weird about it. You don't have to feel pressured. You just have a comeback, plan it in advance so you're comfortable with it, and the whole situation will be 1,000 times more comfortable. But don't internalize it as pressure. People are naturally curious. I'm one of the most curious people on the planet. I'll ask you 1,000 questions about everything. It's not because I'm trying to be rude or pry or nosy or anything like that. I'm just curious. I want to know stuff. I want to know what makes people tick because I'm a fixer. I'm a professional coach. I want to fix it. I want to know what's going on so I can figure out how to fix it because I want to help everybody fix everything. The next one in this poor planning for social situations is not having a sober support system in place for events. And this is, again, something we talk about endlessly. You have to have people. You have to have people that know who you are, what you're going through, what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, what's important to you. They have to know you're sober and it's important to you. And you can have them on text message. You can have a Facebook group. There's 100 Facebook groups. There's way more than that. There's tons of Facebook groups that are sobriety related, and you can be connecting in there, right? If you start to feel overwhelmed or something, excuse yourself to the restroom, take a few deep belly breaths, and post an update. I'm at this party, kind of stressful. Hope everybody's having a great night, right? It's just being connected. Or if you have a friend, same thing, like, this is a little more overwhelming than I expected it to be, but I'm going to get through. Thanks for being here for me. That's a sober support system. It doesn't have to be people in real life. You have to go to a meeting before and go to a meeting after your event. It's just having some support so that you feel safe and supported. Why is this a roadblock? Like I said, poor preparation equals poor performance. Social situations can feel overwhelming, and that will increase the likelihood of relapse. Not only in social situations do you have the possibility of feeling like the odd man out, right? Like I always say, like what in this picture doesn't belong. It's almost always me. It doesn't matter what situation it is, doesn't have to have anything to do with sobriety. I just don't fit, you know? So that feeling of feeling like you don't fit or you're different is already overwhelming. Being out and around people and around alcohol is overwhelming. So without preparation, your likelihood of relapse is huge. Here's your how to spot it question. Think back, what is a recent social event where you felt unprepared? And how could you approach it differently next time? What could you do to do a better job, plan better, more in advance, all those good things? Number 5, try doing it alone. I tell you, this really probably should be number 1. This is the number 1 roadblock. This is what I hear all the time from people that have relapsed 1,000 times. I can do it on my own. I can do it on my own. I can do it on my own. I can figure it out. I can handle this. Listen, this has nothing to do with your mental fortitude or your strength or what a big badass you are, how powerful you are as a human being. It has nothing to do with it. Alcoholism is alcoholism. It doesn't give a fuck who you are, how strong you think you are, how cool you think you are, how smart you think you are. Alcoholism and addiction behave exactly the same way in every human being on the planet. Your behaviors and your details may be a little bit different, but alcoholism and its progression and how it behaves is exactly the same. I've been doing this almost 20 years. It's exactly the same across the board. It's very predictable. And if you want to sit back and think you can do it on your own, then I guess just let me know when you're tired of fucking around and ending up back at day 1. You can hire me as your coach and we can solve the problem. Doing it on your own is really challenging. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to go to meetings or you have to do anything. You can figure out what this looks like for you. Now, of course, if you want to go to meetings and you want to do a program, all that does is makes it 1,000 times easier because you don't have to do any of the hard work. You don't have to think about anything. All you have to do is show up and shut up, right? Follow some basic general direction from somebody that's already done it. Very simple. But if you want to isolate and you want to do it on your own and you want to keep it a secret, you're going to have problems, period. There's no way around it. You're going to have problems. And for the very itty bitty tiny piece of the population that can actually stay sober without getting any kind of help and without getting any kind of help for the character defects and the mental parts and the growing up parts, listen, if I stayed exactly the same person I was when I was drinking and I just quit drinking and I stayed that same jerk, judgmental, overbearing, angry, condescending human being, can you imagine like living the rest of your life like that? I didn't want to be that person anymore. That's why I didn't just get sober. I actually got into recovery. Sober is quitting the substance. Recovery is growing up and changing your life and becoming a good human being. So you decide which one you want to be in. You can get sober on your own. You can white knuckle it and be miserable and be by yourself. And you can do it that way. You're welcome to do it that way. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to stop you. There's no sober police, right? You can do it that way. But if you want to have fun and actually have a different life and actually become a different person that you respect and admire and that you're living a life you're proud of and you feel good about and you're being a good example for your kids, that's recovery. So here's what this looks like. Thinking you should be able to handle sobriety without help. Avoiding support groups or coaching or sober communities. Feeling isolated and ashamed about needing assistance. I have not come across a single area of my life yet that I didn't need some assistance with. That's just the honest truth. We have parents. What the fuck do you think that is? That's assistance. Right? We have teachers, we have mentors, we have managers, bosses, like all of that is assistance. School, college, like all of this is assistance. So sobriety and recovery are no different. I need guidance from somebody who's already done it, from somebody who knows how to do it, from somebody that can recognize the roadblocks when I'm stuck in the middle of them and keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So that's the trying to do it alone. Here's why it's a roadblock, because recovery thrives on connection. Human beings thrive on connection. Addiction thrives in isolation. It needs you to be isolated and alone so that it can prey on you. Addiction stays in control when you're isolated and alone and you feel like shit about yourself. That's what it needs. Recovery thrives in connection. Human beings are created to work together. So trying to go it alone just leads to isolation and frustration, and it makes it 1,000 times harder to stay on track. And that's really not what you're going for. That you don't want to. We are really good at making things much harder on ourselves because we're stubborn and we're willful and we're very smart people. Addicted people are incredibly intelligent people. Our brains move very fast. So we always think we're so smart we can figure things out. We always think, oh, I don't need all the things that those people need, right? Those are your roadblocks. That's what's going to happen trying to do it alone. This is why I loved going to meetings, because all I had to do was show up and shut up, like sit down in my chair and close my freaking mouth. That's all I had to do. And it was so nice because I couldn't be trusted to make any decisions, nor should I have been trusted, because me making my own decisions got me in one hell of a mess and I almost killed somebody. So I couldn't be trusted. I needed other people. I needed guidance and assistance and fellowship and community and laughter and love and acceptance and kindness. I needed all of that. And that's what you get having some sort of sober community. Here's your how to spot it question. Ask, who do I have in my corner for support? Who do you have that really supports you, that you've been honest with, that really understands what you're going through, how you feel, that you're getting sober, and that it's important to you? That's a support person. So who do you have in your corner for support, and what's one step you can take to build a stronger, sober network? Again, whatever that looks like. Nobody needs to waste their time and energy talking about how they don't like 12 steps anymore. There are a ton of other programs out there. So when we talk about meetings or programs or networking or fellowship, it's not about 12 steps anymore. You can do any of them. There's a million of them. So who do you have in your corner, and what's one step you can take to build a stronger, sober network? All right, recognizing these roadblocks is the first step to overcoming them. And the good news is you don't have to do this alone. Remember, the Dry January boot camp is coming up, and it's designed to help you uncover and address all of these roadblock challenges and to give you the tools and support you need to build a sustainable recovery plan, because that's really what you're going for. Don't forget to get the free resource, 5 Roadblocks, Sabotaging Your Sobriety and How to Spot Them, so you can start really digging into this and reflecting on your journey. And when you get the free resource, the Dry January information will be in there too. Of course, I will email all of that so everybody knows how to sign up to start getting updates. It won't be for a minute because we've still got a couple of weeks before it starts, but 5 Roadblocks to Sabotaging Your Sobriety and How to Spot Them, you can get at addictionunlimited.com/roadblocks. addictionunlimited.com/roadblocks. Of course, I will link that in the show notes so you can get there right from your podcast app. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.